Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hey, it's Jen. This is the Bible for Busy People, and I want to ask, how do you do in a big crowd? I remember that my first experience in a pretty crowded place after the pandemic, I nearly had a panic attack. I had forgotten what it felt like to be with a large crowd of people. We went to the mall as a family on a Saturday, and people just felt so close. I felt claustrophobic and anxious, and I had to run outside to get some air. We weren't there for any important reason. We were just walking around, but I can imagine how much more intense it would have been if I was there desperately looking for answers and the one person who could help me. This is a story that is told in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but the telling in Mark and the way it's worded really hits me hard. That's what we're reading today in Mark chapter 5, starting in verse 21. It says, when Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet and, trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha koum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. Jesus was used to big crowds. He was used to lots of demands. There's a portrayal of this scene in The Chosen, and it's like my experience at the mall, only amplified. People were pressed around him, as the passage says, and I'm quite sure that they were all vying for his attention. Enter this woman. I am truly sad that we don't have a name for her, that she can only be referred to as the bleeding woman or the woman with the issue of blood, which I think is a little bit more respectful, at least. It's relatable, though. Sometimes we feel like people only identify us by the last thing that we want to be identified by, whether it's the reliable one, even though you wish you could say no once in a while, or the chronically ill one, or the one with the reputation. I wonder if the Bible doesn't name her in order to protect her, but also to reach those of us who get that feeling too. I think we can skip by this too. She suffered for 12 years. You know, it's crazy. The girl Jesus heals later was 12 years old. I find that really interesting that those two correlate. But 12 years of pain and humiliation, of being an outcast, of loneliness. We don't know the details and we don't need to. Leviticus 15 verses 25 to 27 tell us that the law when it comes to women who bled, they were defined as unclean, and anyone who touched them was also unclean, and anything they laid on or sat on was unclean. I'm assuming that this meant that she rarely had interaction with people. I'm assuming there was nothing that she could do to be made ceremonially clean until she was healed. She would not have been able to enter the temple for purification because of the bleeding. She also spent all she had and had no answer. She had no relief. I'm nowhere near the pain that she went through, but I can relate in a small way, having gone through infertility for a long time before I had kids. It was such a difficult time. There were so many doctor's appointments and blood tests, and it was so painful not to have answers, especially seeing others get pregnant far more easily. If you've been through some kind of sickness like this or some kind of having symptoms that don't really have answers to them, you understand the pain of this. But then the woman heard about Jesus. There was a knowing there that just went beyond hope. This man had the power to heal her. Maybe she'd heard stories about him, like when he had healed the demon-possessed man earlier in the chapter. It was clear that he was powerful. Maybe she wasn't sure he'd be willing. Maybe she wasn't sure that she could talk to him. The most likely thing, in my opinion, the most likely reason she doesn't approach him is that she probably feared going out in public among the crowd when she knew she was unclean and she would make other people unclean. But she was absolutely determined. Her faith told her that all she had to do was reach out and touch his garment, and she believed. It happened just as she thought, except for the ending. Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He didn't have to be mentally engaged to heal. Power just exuded from him to those who believed in him. That's how powerful Jesus is. Our proximity to him is proximity to God's power. He recognized it, and he started searching for her in the crowd. He actually called attention to her, which was probably the thing she was hoping to avoid. Here's my theory. Jesus called her out because it was likely that everyone in town knew her as the bleeding woman. This was Jesus redeeming her from that identity and letting everyone know that she was clean and could be welcomed back into society. That probably avoided some awkward conversations or having to prove it herself. This, too, is grace and such compassion from Jesus. I love verse 34. It says, "Your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." Sometimes all we have to do, sometimes all we can do is receive God's goodness and healing in our lives. And then Jesus went and healed that little girl whose father had probably given up all hope. I don't know your situation today. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what you've lost. I don't know what secret suffering you continue to go through, and it's been your own season of 12 years or whatever it's been. Maybe healing hasn't come for you yet. But this story reminds me that Jesus sees, hears, and feels with us. He honors our faith and offers us dignity. Thanks for chatting with me today, and let's talk one more time tomorrow about women who were prompted by faith.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.